What's up, guys? Hope you're having an amazing Sunday with all of your friends and family, and that you are trying to enjoy the last day of freedom right before we come back to work or study this Monday, whatever we do. Yeah, my name is Pepe Cuenca, and I am a Spanish Grandmaster, and I'm here with you guys today to analyze the game of the day of the round number 9 of the US Championships. As you know, it's gathering a lot of super strong Grandmasters, Caruana, Nakamura, Kamsky, etc. The game that we're going to take a look on today is the fight that took place between Lenderman and Fabiano Caruana. Lenderman is a young, talented US player from 89 in the 2600 ELO club, and Fabiano Caruana is one of the strongest chess players in the world. So let's just check what happened in this game. Lenderman was taking the white pieces, and he decided to open the game with c4, the English opening. It's pretty trendy these days. We saw many games with the English opening in the candidates, for example. And here e6, really natural move. Of course, e5 is also possible, knight f6, etc. e5 is one of the most used replies from the top players. But Caruana decided to go here for e6, knight c3, d5, d4, and here bishop e7. Yeah. Most of the times black develops his knight here on f6, so probably we are going to transpose to the same kind of positions. So after knight f6, knight f3, bishop e7, for example, and now bishop f4 is very trendy, bishop g5, of course, many possibilities. And after bishop e7, probably we are going to end up in the same kind of lines, but the only question we could ask to ourselves is, can we actually play e4 here in this position, since black is not controlling e4 with his knight? So actually it's nothing special. Black can just take on e4. You normally want to take the central pawn. You never want to take on c4. This gives us a tempo to develop our bishop from f1, right? After knight takes e4, knight f6 is a really natural and good move, developing the knight in the French style, for example. And let's say after knight f6, bishop f6, knight f3, after the good move, for example, c5, black is more than fine. So actually e4 is nothing special. So yeah, knight f3, for example, is possible, knight f6, or in this position c takes d5 is also a natural move that was playing in the game. The idea is after e takes d5, you want to develop bishop f4. You don't want to play e3 normally before you have played bishop f4, because in this way your bishop will be inside the pawn chain, and this is actually not good. So after bishop f4, you are targeting the c7 pawn. Maybe you can jump sometimes with knight d5. That's why black normally replies with c6, reinforcing the center and also avoiding all this kind of jumps with knight to b5. And here there are already three interesting options. The move that was played in the game is e3. Actually, after e3, most of the times black develops his bishop via f5. Maybe exchanging the bishop, the light square bishops is a good idea for black in most of these types of positions, because actually this bishop is a bit worse than the white one. It actually doesn't have so many good diagonals, right? So that's why in many games, white has played here queen c2. That actually the idea is stopping bishop f5, and now you want to continue with e3, bishop d3, knight g2, short castles. Maybe in some positions go with f3, e4, trying to gain some space in the center. But here, for example, many different tries. g6 is actually a smart move. Of course, doesn't look so natural, just creating some weaknesses in your king side, but actually allows bishop f5 in the next move. Let's say e3, bishop f5. Yeah, you manage to exchange this bishop, and this is actually considered to be good for black. So in this game, e3, bishop f5, and now g4. Really an attacking move from Lenderman, going for double-edged positions. It has been played in many games before, so it's nothing new, but it's really interesting. The idea is you want to force this bishop back to e6. You could think, okay, Pepe, why cannot we go to g6, just trying to stay in this beautiful diagonal, avoiding all this bishop d3. Not avoiding, but it's good normally to exchange these bishops. So in g6 it's a bit worse square than e6, because now after h4, actually the position is really interesting for white. You could think, why cannot we take on h4? Yeah, this is normally not a good idea. Now there is a strong move, queen to b3. After queen b3, black normally would love to reply with queen b6, but in this position that you actually took on h4, you have to keep an eye on this bishop on h4, so queen b6 is not possible anymore. And after b6, there are some good moves like boom, h4, boom, sacrificing in this moment the exchange. But after queen to h4, there is a really strong blow, knight takes d5, and actually white is winning in this position. You want to jump to c7, and after c takes d5, queen takes d5, the rook on a8 is just lost. So that's why you cannot take on h4 really. And then after something like h5, you can just go g5, and then there are some plans related with bringing a knight to f4, putting some pressure on this bishop on g6. And if black wants to remove this bishop from g6, h5 will be extremely weak, and this position is really interesting for white. So that's why you normally go to e6 in this position, and h4 was played by Lenderman. No fear against Fabiano Caruana, trying to put some difficulties on black's development on the king side. This knight on g8 is not gonna be easy to be developed, right? And here again, after bishop h4, now queen b3 is a really strong move, forcing b6. In this position, you cannot take, of course, now on h4, and then on d5, it's just a terrible move, right? Bishop d5, and then nothing's happening. But after some move like knight f3, bishop e7, and knight e5, now the position is really uncomfortable for black. You cannot go f6 since you have the knight g6 winning the game. Knight f6 is going to be difficult to play. There are some moves like g5, g6, bishop d3 is coming, putting some pressure on h7. You cannot develop this knight here because c6 is hanging. So the position is quite uncomfortable for black here. So that's why you normally go knight d7 here in this position. And now g5 was played. Now the knight on g8 cannot jump anywhere, right? And here a really common move. It's true that we have pushed our pawns too far, so black's development is not so easy. But at the same time, black already put 3 pieces out of the initial squares, and still we have to develop our white pieces, right? That's why h6 is really interesting move. Now, of course, if you take on h6, this helps black development. Knight take h6, and now you want to come to f5 and then putting a lot of pressure on the h4 pawn. So this position is actually a bit better for black. So that's why here in this position, g6 is a really interesting move. More than 10 games in my database with strong players who played in this position, strong grandmasters, world-class players have reached this position. The idea is now, okay, after knight f6 has been played sometimes, you can take on f7 and then develop your bishop via h3, for example. F take g6 has been played, for example, in the game Ponomarev of Sargsyan in 2013. The idea is, of course, now you want to put a lot of pressure on the g6 pawn, let's say bishop d3, knight f8, and queen c2. For example, if you want to keep alive this pawn, going for g5, h takes, bishop takes, and now bishop g3, this humble move. Now black's development is still too difficult. You are gonna never feel safe in the king side, right? Even if you manage to castle, it's not gonna be easy, right? And then even castling long side looks extremely dangerous as well. There are many ideas related with b4, b5. This jump to b5 could be really annoying when the king is on c8, since this bishop here is a monster, right? And then you can just castle alongside here with white, developing knight f3, knight d5. So the position is again really uncomfortable for black here. But instead, Fabiano Caruana decided to go here in this position for f5. And according to my database, it's a novelty, or at least has been never played in the top level, yeah? And here, when I was checking the game, 2 plans came to my mind. The first one is, of course, putting a lot of pressure in the f5 pawn, in the Facundo pawn, something like bishop d3, queen c2, knight e2, knight g3, right? Putting a lot of pressure on the f5 pawn. The second plan that comes to my mind, and that actually was played in the game, is to install a steed, this beautiful knight, in f4, yeah? So knight g2 or knight h3, just remove this bishop from f4 and then just try to go knight f4, since this bishop here is not so comfortable, right? It doesn't have any squares. So after f5 in the game, bishop g3 was played. let's try to analyze what happens after the normal move bishop d3. Yeah. So black has to go knight f6. There's not another interesting move, and it's not that simple to take the f5 pawn. I was just thinking, okay, I just want to go queen c2 and f3 in case black jumps to e4, but it's not that easy because now bishop takes h4 is a really strong move, then knight f2, so it's not that simple. Another plan that came to my mind while I was analyzing the game was just, why not knight g2 here? Knight g2 and knight g3. Okay, black has a really interesting move here, knight h5, just controlling the g3 square, putting some pressure on the f4 bishop, trying to bring the other knight to f6 and e4. So maybe there is a really interesting move here after knight gf6. Maybe the move h5 was really interesting. Now you want to continue with knight g2, and black cannot go to h5, knight g2, knight g3, queen c2, and I think white is a bit better. Okay, let's see what happened in the game. He went for bishop g3, as I told you. Now we want to go to f4, right? And knight f6 was played, knight h3, and now you have to do something about this jump to f4. Let's say you just castle short side, and now there's the move knight f4, just winning the game on the spot, because you cannot defend this guy and you cannot move it. So actually black is losing in this position. That's why Fabiano Caruana decided to give some fresh air to this beautiful bishop. It's not so beautiful, right? It doesn't have many diagonals. But yeah, you have to give it some squares, yeah? So after knight f4, bishop d7, now you can remove your bishop to this square. And here f3 was played. I think it's also a natural move. You control the e4 square. You want to go bishop d3 and queen c2. And after short castle here, maybe it's some move that actually was not so precise. He went for king f2. I think it's more natural to go queen c2 and then just try to castle long side here. I know it can be a bit dangerous to break after the break on c5 for black, but at the same time c5 weakens the d5 the pawn, and also will give us a really nice blockade square d4. So let's say some knight e2, knight d4 maneuvers after c5 could be interesting. So maybe queen c2, just trying to castle alongside, was more precise. But he went for king f2 here, just trying to maybe go to g2. It's true that there are no breaks here in this position, no pawn breaks. So, but in the future, this king could be a bit weak. Actually, this is what happened in the game. Let's see. Fabiano Caruana went for rook c8, pretty natural move, just trying to break c5, and we cannot avoid it since we cannot play b4 in the next move. So black is gonna manage to break in the with c5, and now bishop d3 was played. Yeah, developing this this f1 bishop, c5, and now king g2. And now after c takes d4, e takes d4. Yeah, d5 is a bit weak, but the position of this king in g2 is a bit weird. Yeah. Now bishop d6, a move that I really liked it a lot, because in case that you need to remove some this knight from f4, you're gonna manage to do it, and then d5 is gonna be safe, right? And now there are many ideas related with taking on f4 and then going knight h5, bringing the queen to f6, trying to capture this tasty pawn on g6. Yeah, white already has to be really careful in this position. So if you try to bring the rook to e1, could be a natural move from our perspective. The thing is actually white is almost losing already. After bishop takes f4, knight f6, you are gonna manage to enter in h4 with your queen, and then moves like f4, and yeah, white is has almost to resign. Queen f6, also an idea, coming to g6. So instead, Lenderman decided to go for queen b3, just putting some pressure on this the d5 pawn, and Fabiano went for king h8 here. And the thing is, this pawn on d5 is not a good idea to take it. Let's see what happens. If you take on d5, now you can just take on d5, knight takes e5, and now bishop e6. Really strong move. Now knight f6 is not a check, so actually you have a lot of problems with this pin. Let's say you wanna keep your beautiful knight alive. So after bishop c4, you can just take on g3, king takes, and now bishop takes d5, just winning, right? So after king h8, Lenderman decided to go for bishop b5. It's another human move. You want to remove some pieces from the easy square that actually it's really interesting for a knight. But the thing is, black is it's always on time to take on f4, and there are no more jumps to e6. And this is actually what happened in the game. Bishop takes f4, bishop takes f4, and now knight h5. Really strong move. Forcing this bishop back. Now you want to go to f6 if the bishop just retreats to d2, for example. So, or you want to go rook f6. That's why bishop e5 is the only move to try to survive in this position. Now at least you cannot go rook f6 or queen f6. Looks like the position is still not so clear, but Fabiano Caruana just played in a really good manner. He went for bishop b5. Now you don't want to capture with your knight because this opens a lot of files and your king is extremely weak here on g2. So Lenderman took on b5 with the queen, and now knight c4. Not only you want to give some checks on e3, not only you put some pressure on b2, but also you want to remove the piece that actually is not allowing you to go rook f6 or queen f6, just intending to capture this pawn on g6. Yeah. So in this position, actually, you cannot even take on d5. Yeah, you could think, why, Pepe, we don't take this tasty pawn on d5? The thing is, there is a really strong move. Boom, queen to d5, just winning the game on the spot. After queen takes d5, knight e3, check, and then you're gonna capture the queen back. In the next move, just black is a piece up, so no problems at all. So that's why in this position, Lenderman went for rook a e1. Bringing the last piece into play. But here the thing is, after knight e5, the position is extremely difficult for black. You could think, okay, why not to take on e5 with my pawn? Yeah, so it's still we don't allow rook f6 or queen d6 or queen f6. Black has many options here. You can go even rook c6 now, just intending to capture this pawn with this rook. You can also go d4 here. After d takes e5, you can go d4. When the knight retreats to some square like d1 or e2, you can enter with your rook to c2 in the 7th rank, and actually, yeah, looks terrible for white. Yeah, and if you try to go rook d1, you can even play d3. This you cannot take this pawn. There is this beautiful check on f4, winning the game. And you have many ideas related of going queen d4, knight f4 check, rook c6, coming to g6. Yeah, this looks terrible, right? So he went for rook e5, and now queen f6. Now this pawn is just lost, so you are just gonna take it. Lenderman went for king f2, queen g6. Now you wanna give a check on g3, right? So rook g1 was played, almost only move. Queen f6. Now the h4 pawn is hanging, so you have to go back to h1. And here knight f2. Active move, bringing your knight to the action, and you cannot even take on d5. As I told you, now the c file is just open. You can just come to c2, and after king e3, you can just take on d5, queen takes, and some move like queen g6. You are threatening to give checkmate on f4 in one move, and then some ideas related to bringing the queen to g2 or g3. Yeah, the position is just lost for white, right? So he went here for king to e3, and now knight g6. Now you are forcing this rook to take here on d5. There are no more moves. Rook takes d5, and now knight h4. You want to give a check on g5 maybe, and collecting this pawn on f3. So rook d7 was played, just trying to maybe to create some problems in the 7th rank, but everything is so well defended here in this position. So Fabiano went for queen to g5. Now you cannot go to e2 or f2 since there is a check on g2, just collecting this beautiful rook. So you have to go to d3 only move, and now you just take on f3. The last pawn on the king side, you are eliminating everything from there. After rook d1 that was played, you have to cover the d2 square as well. There was it was checkmate actually. So queen to g2 was played. Now you want to go maybe f4 and then queen g6, or maybe after if white removes this knight from c3, you have the c2 square as well. So Lenderman took on b7, and now rook f e8. Bringing another rook to an open file. Rook c7 was played. The idea is after you take on c7, you take on e8 with a check. But actually, Fabiano went for rook b8. Just and now actually you cannot play rook b7. Why? There is rook b7, queen takes b7, and knight e5. Boom! just winning the game, winning the queen. Yeah, life is easy after this. So instead, Lenderman went for queen c6 and now rook e d8 with so many threats. You want to take on d4, and then f4 checkmate after king e3, and then there is also this threat with knight to e5, right? So the only move that actually avoids this is just king c4, defending the pawn on d4, and also avoiding this knight e5 check, and the king on c4 it has gone so far from g2, right? It's dancing salsa around the board, it's dancing some music, yeah, but the dance is not gonna end well for white, right? So he went here for another amazing tactic blow. It's rook takes d4, and now the idea is after rook takes there is a knight e5 check, winning the queen. So instead he went for king c5, dancing a little bit more, rook takes d1, knight takes, and queen to g1, and actually white has to resign here. If you go to d6 or d5, you can just collect this knight with a check, and if you go to c4, this is actually what happened in the game, you can actually give checkmate in one move, in d4. Yeah, so really nice victory for Fabiano Caruana, surprising his opponent with this f5 move. Yeah, I think Lenderman played a bit slow with this maneuver of bishop g3, knight h3, knight f4. Maybe it was more interesting just to put a lot of pressure on the f5 pawn. So yeah, Fabiano Caruana is leading the tournament after 9 rounds. Just remember that you can follow all the action in our site in Chess24 with commentary. There's commentary in English and commentary in Spanish. This has been everything for today. I hope you guys have an amazing Sunday, and yeah, a good start of the week tomorrow. So just take care and see you in the next video. Bye bye.